Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. So yummo. It's so good. Okay. So want to talk about a couple of things. One is like warrior energy, and two is co-creating with another human being, in terms of how do we expand our vision, expand our purpose. And so good morning, Kwati. Good morning, Tiana. So talking about the warrior energy, right? Warrior energy is the fire energy that's within us, right? It's like I'm having a staff that we can put down. It's the divine will, but it also can be the ego and pride. It's also strength and courage. A great character to sort of, good morning, Rodney. Oh, hey, Rodney. A good character to think about for this would be like the Cowardly Lion, right? On The Wizard of Oz, who was there for strength and courage and divine will, and at the end, recognizing that the courage was within him. And it becomes this fire energy that's in us. Now, sometimes that fire energy comes to our head and we're not thinking properly, right? So the energy is up in our head and we sort of get frustrated, angry, and we lash out, okay? And that there's nothing right, wrong, good, or bad about that. But if we redirect that fire energy, we are able to co-create in God's divine birthright. So how do we do that? Basically, it's taking that hot head and allowing it to come down into the belly. So we want a cool head and a hot belly. And that's what we want. In order for the energy to like, the divine will, divine energy comes from the core of our belly to get up and have the ganas, right? Or the desire, to do something for our lives, to inspire ourselves, to motivate ourselves. So people will say, well, how do you stay motivated? How do you do this? Why are you so determined? Da, da, da. And that's why. Because I get that fire energy and I put it in my belly and then I push it forward rather than putting it in my hot head. And I was just talking about this to a friend the other day about when I was younger, when I had a hot head or when I was upset or when I got angry when I was young, I would literally just jump out of the car and be like, I'm walking. I just need to walk. And I could have been 5 miles away. I didn't matter. I wasn't going to get back in the car, and I just knew that I needed to cool down my head, and that's how I did it. And by the time that I got to my destination, because I was able to allow myself to go through the process and separate and allow myself to come down, is that when I got to my destination, when I got to the place where I could meet that person again, then I could talk from a place of love and kindness and compassion. So using the fire energy is really critical, understanding how to transmute it, understanding how to take that divine will and put it in the belly so that we're driving energy in towards of motivation, inspiration to move us through the world, okay? Fire energy is the most powerful energy we have. I believe it sits in our solar plexus. I'm really looking into the chakra systems now. Kind of known them before, but not necessarily. And mainly because I'm actually going through the feeling and sensation of Kundalini energy going through my chakra system. I've gone through the process in the spiritual, and what I'm looking at in the chakra system is how many, so there's different systems within the chakra system that I'm looking at, because we have our emotional, we have our mental. Well, I told you that the other day. It's not the mental, not the emotional, it's the mental and the body, the physical. And that's the result of our emotion. So our emotion comes from those two things. And the emotion that we experience allow us to rise the energy up through our chakra system. So really starting to heal the chakras in the body and starting to understand how to utilize that energy to motivate, to move forward, to grow, to expand, and then co-create, which is what I was talking about. Co-creation is probably one of the most difficult things that we can do if we're doing it in the name of God. And the reason why I say it's the most difficult thing is because now we're participating with another person, which seems like another person. However, it can be the most beautiful thing we experience if we do it in the name of God. both. And both people have the vision, the same vision. They can see it together. So when you find your divine purpose, when you're seeking your divine purpose, which comes from divine will, which is fire energy, and you start to understand what your divine purpose is, right? So looking at that and saying, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Who am I? How do I continue to connect? What is it? And so shared experiences, solo experiences. Yes. Oh, hey, Fred. What's up? How you doing, buddy? Oh, you're doing your podcast. I should go in there and do a podcast from your little station area if you'd let me. Just try it out. Be all professional and stuff. This is totally my unprofessional professional podcast. But to co-create in the name, right? And so what we do is that vision comes to you when you have your divine purpose and your divine will, and you start to see it every day, and you start working towards it every day, a little at a time. Now, does it come overnight that you have people who can see your same vision? No. Sometimes you share your vision by yourself for a very long time before others show up. And then sometimes people will show up and leave. Right? They come in and then they leave. And you're like, okay, well, that just was a flop. And sometimes you're like, oh, well, just got to let it go. It's okay. The non-attachment to saying it's okay that this is not the person I'm going to co-create with. But when we do find an individual who's 100% committed to the co-creation of the vision, they can see it, right? And I say do it in the name of God. So if God is not the word you use, do it in the name of the universal principle, right? Altruism, where you're giving back to humanity in some way. And that form of giving back allows other people to see the vision come to life and fruition. You start to have people to say, oh yeah, I can see it, and I want to be a part of this. Now, it's not that they're part of your vision, it's that they can expand on the vision you have, and they have the same vision, and so there's an expansion of it. So it's not like, oh, this is just my piece, and it's not like that. It's more of an expansion. Like they can see what you're up to, and they can see how they fit into it, and they can see how they can expand the vision into what they want to do. So it's really utilizing the gifts of other people in co-creation with what you've already created. And it's just the commitment to do it. Some people take time. Oh, I see that there's this commitment. Oh, I see they're going in the direction that I want to. I want to co-create with this individual. We can come create an episode, co-create. Woo, woo. I like that. Let's do it, Fred. Yes. Social distancing, stop chakra energy joining between people. Yeah, it can. Social distancing can, but social distancing doesn't mean that we can't be in the presence of other people. So it just maybe we're not in the presence of the people that we choose to be in the presence of, when we're forced to be in the presence of some people. But yes, we can still heal our chakra system and chakra energy. It just takes one other individual to do that. You don't need 5 billion people to heal your chakras. You can do it on your own. However, when you do it with another individual, it grows and expands your understanding of the divine, right? Because now you're taking another energy and you're pulling these energies together and you're moving through the system. So there's a lot going on with the chakra systems. There's a lot of healing around all of it. And it's not the easiest process, but it's worth it. Because again, once we get through these healings, then we see the magnitude of what we can create. It becomes bigger, it expands more, it grows, and it grows in divine right? It grows in, you start right, you stay right. It grows through the eyes of God. It grows through the universal principles, natural law, and it expands kind of like a weed, right? Or a mustard seed. I like the mustard seed parable where we put the mustard seed and then it's so small, but then it expands into this big, ginormous thing. So that's what we're looking at. The one into the many into one. it's sort of that understanding that you can put two energies together and expand, and then it expands, and then it expands, and it expands. But are we expanding? I'm expanding love, like, and that's it, just love. And then people wake up. Hopefully people are waking up that they're love and that they have a divine purpose. Now, the healing of the chakra, again, I talked about the fire energy and the solar plexus is the hardest one to sort of maneuver. We have the emotional one. The emotional ones could be hard for some individuals because they've been made wrong to have emotion and cry and all that stuff. But once we do, it's really easy to have the emotion, but to redirect the emotion using fire energy becomes a little bit more hard. So it's an interesting energy to work with, fire, within ourselves. But once we understand it, once we know how to navigate it, once we understand how to steer it in the direction that we want to focus on, we start to create our divine purpose in motion. And we see the result of this in the external world, the materialization of it. And then it just expands. And it's just amazing. It's way amazing, actually, to be in co-creation. So I'm understanding that. I'm going through it myself. The healing of my chakra, I would say I've gone through the emotional part of it, the physical part I'm going through, and the mental part now. So the mental part for me has been an interesting dynamic because things show up for you when you start to open up your kundalini, your chakras, and all this all at once. And so go slow. Okay, you don't have to do this at a fast pace. You can go very slow, very light to begin with. And it really starts with you getting very clear about some of the underlying things that are happening in the subconscious mind. Like, again, I went back to childhood and there was stories there that needed to still be healed, which I healed, and I allowed myself to heal. And I started to see the different pieces show up in the material world with my family, with the conversations that were happening. Naturally, we're untangling or are untangling without me having to do anything but heal myself. So that happened. What ignited that healing is the co-creation, shared vision through God, shared vision through universe, shared vision through creator, whatever you call it, being able to put out the call, right? If you did a call out to to God, and you were like, God, help me, provide me somebody I can co-create this purpose with, this divine mission with, my divine purpose, what I am here to co-create. And then boom, shows up, and then boom, out into the material world, and a lot of healing around it, right? And being able to communicate and articulate from a new space, not just the one space. It's a growth. It's a growth into something new. And me not really understanding it at that point, because I can only know what I know. But now this is allowing me to expand my scope of understanding in another dimensional time space and with co-creation in other people, rather than just Natalie by herself. So it's a beautiful thing. And when we come together in union with another individual to co-create in God's divine will, good morning, Sandra, we start to recognize that communication, the body, everything is just, it's meaningless in a lot of ways. It's just meaningless. Like, our bodies are here as a vessel to co-create with God, but it's really just, these bodies are just, they're finite, right? They're not forever. They're going to go away eventually. They will perish, but our spirit, whatever legacy we leave behind, will stay. And we will be able to leave a present or a gift to the world. So you get to leave your gift to the world, whatever that is, whatever your gifts are. And I'd love to hear what your gifts are. if you guys have any that you'd like to share what your gifts are, because I would love to hear about them. And I just, for anybody on here who's like, I just want to co-create, I just want to be able to heal my chakras, I'm sending you out that divine, beautiful prayer to you so that you can heal as well. And that you can really start to magnetize what's righteous towards you, what's righteous, what's beautiful, everything that you deserve in terms of your practice to connect to the divine, that be bestowed upon you, the healing and the love and the kindness and the compassion, and that you experience God's miracle. I will leave love as my legacy. I love that. That's so beautiful. Yes, and unconditional love. And you know what, Sandra, it's not so easy. I mean, it's so beautiful to say it, but I know in practice that there might be times where it might be hard. It may not. It may be very easy for you, because I leave a legacy of wisdom, but I'm also here to love, right? Unconditional love. And unconditional love is sometimes not an easy thing in this human body, in the human form. Right. When we allow ourselves to step outside of the human form and remember that our bodies are just impermanent, then we can actually allow love to flow through us without any condition. But to get there, sometimes it's hard, especially when your avatar, I call it this body, this avatar body that we have, just call it an avatar. We say now stupid avatar, but the body itself is like so high maintenance. And it's so bitchy sometimes, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, Sandra's like, I love everybody. And then I get in the car and then someone cuts me off in traffic, and trust me, it just switches. And I'm like, what just happened? Oh, that's the body. That's the mind. That's not flow. That's just my body reacting to some triggered response. Why? Because I want to survive, and it's the ego, and maybe there's a fear that they might harm me, or I might end up getting hurt, and all these things that go through your mind, when really it's meaningless, because our bodies again are impermanent anyway. Like, we're not going to take them with us, but they are here to allow us to move through the earth. So the love part that we get to allow ourselves to drop into does not recognize the body. It just doesn't identify with it. When you're truly embodying your God self in love, you're not identified with the body. You're just identified with the energy that's flowing through you and then spewing out into the other people. And you can see it in anyone, and even in the angry, frustrated ones. And to be able to say, okay, I'm going to pour this love out to these individuals, regardless of what the triggers that are happening within me, right? Because again, you spot it, you got it. So if you see someone angry and you're like, I'm here to practice love and that's my legacy, then you're looking at these people who are angry and really using what I call compassion, right? Together we suffer, understanding that they are probably in a state of suffering, which is why they are having that type of energy. If they weren't in suffering and they too were practicing unconditional love, they would allow themselves to take personal responsibility for their suffering, identify that everyone is in suffering together, have compassion and then empathy, and then be able to come back to love and say, I love you. So it's a process. Everything's a process. Think of us as I'm at this stage where I'm thinking of everything as a computer system, which it's just easier that way. It's the language we speak now because we're in the digital era, is that we have a program and we have to process our program at times. And the process is allowing ourselves to step back and say, how am I engaging this situation? If unconditional love is my legacy, if that's what I'm doing, how do I process back to love? And I said the other day, leave yourself breadcrumbs to get yourself back to God. God is love. Universe is love. It loves us. And so it wants what's right for us. It wants what's good for us. So how do I get myself back to that? breadcrumbs. How do I say, okay, I'm going to be unconditional love? The breadcrumbs. For me, it's understanding compassion and suffering and getting my way back there to be able to see love in every single thing, in all things, even the the things we don't want to love, right? There's a lot of weird, murky stuff going on these days. We know that. And that in that we can love the darkness as well, because that's part of it. Love is love. It doesn't just compartmentalize like, oh, I'm just not going to love that. And I'm just going to love this. And, you know, it's just love. And it's the embodiment of that energy, allowing it to flow through you, and then cleaning out the blockages that keep us from experiencing that energy. And those are the breadcrumbs that bring you back. And there's a bunch of different things that can show up. You know, your archetypes that you hold, and typically it's archetypes that show up that you know, and that's conditioning and programming again. But if we get through the programming, which is a process, and the process are the breadcrumbs that we kind of go through, right? We're like making our way back to it, but the process is important. We have to allow ourselves to process the information that we're receiving or the feedback that we're getting from the world, okay? And that process that we receive, when we're receiving a process, right, or when we're receiving part of the programming or feedback, the process that we create, right, allows us to remember that we can come back to the same experience of love over and over and over and over again. So ask yourself, what is my process? I know my process, right? Your process is going to be different, but I have to step away to process things sometimes. And sometimes it takes me days and days. I'm like, I need some time to really understand. Why? Because when we process, so experience your experience, communicate your experience with the others, intentions of others getting it, have what you have, and be responsible for everything. Experiencing your experience is the process, allowing yourself to go through the process. The communication is why we process. That's what that's for, so that we can communicate clearly, so we can articulate with clarity, so that we understand with clarity what it is that we are experiencing, and that when we are looking for the results, right, that we are looking for, that if the communication is on point, and if you're clear about your emotions, and if you take personal responsibility for them, and you're able to articulate that to another individual, you're going to get what's called a win-win situation instead of a win-lose. Instead of a pointing fingers, you're wrong, because all that does is cause conflict. Everything can come to a win-win situation. But that takes communication with clarity. Understanding how to communicate your experience. There are things that I'm experiencing now that I don't have words for. There are no words for me. So I don't know how to communicate certain things. So I'm trying to pull from the words that I know to articulate the experience that I'm having. But it's different. Things are shifting for me big time in different ways that I didn't even understand before. I was talking about third dimensional, fourth dimensional spaces and the experience that I had. How do I communicate that out so that there's clarity and understanding in it? So think about it. How do you communicate love, or how do you get back to love if there's conflict? Okay, and I'm using your example, Sandra, since you're the one who talked. So thank you for that. How do you communicate love in a you know, when people are cutting you off in traffic? I use traffic because that one just triggers me all the time. I'm trying to get, but I laugh about it. So the process is deep breaths. There you go. That's good. There's your breadcrumbs, deep breaths. And remember, you are love. Inhale love, exhale anger, frustration, fear, whatever. Inhale love, exhale the other stuff. Let it go. That's what I need to do probably. That's what I'm going to practice doing deep breaths while I'm in traffic. But I laugh. So maybe that is the breath. It's laughing breath. So bringing yourself back over and over and over and over again, and the co-creation. So I imagine that things are going to shift pretty interestingly with Spirit and Coffee, because there's some new dynamics and new co-creation. Remembering everything is a moment. Yeah, that's presence. That's beautiful. Presence is always good. Just remember, this too shall pass, right? Every moment is a different moment. Every second. Oh, I'm yawning. Oh, sorry, guys, I'm yawning. I don't know where that came from. My brain needed oxygen. Is there anything in there? I think it's hollow. I have a hollow brain. Nothing's in there. Okay, so there you have it. More coffee. Yeah, I know. More coffee, more water. Whew. Wake up, girlfriend. So allow yourself to heal. Use your divine power, your fire energy. Learn how to read up on it if you can. You know, what is fire? How do we bring ourselves back to our divine birthright or purpose? Do we even have one? If not, how do we get to one? And then once we have our divine purpose, how do we expand that and co-create? So it's like baby steps. But there will be but there is going to be some shifts in Spirit and Coffee, which I think is really going to be exciting. I'm really happy about it. In co-creation, because finally have somebody who can see the vision and is wanting to be a part of it. And it's just really beautiful. Not that I didn't have a team of people before, but they're 100% ingrained in the vision. Like, they understand. And so anybody's willing, you know, you guys can all be a part of it. That's what it is. It's not like, again, it's not mine, it's God's, right? It doesn't belong to me. It's God's. And so co-creation is a big piece of it. And so if you're ever interested in understanding what that might look like, you can contact me at spiritandbrew@gmail.com, or on the Facebook at Spirit and Coffee One. Spirit and Coffee Talk, I'm sorry, on the Facebook page. Spirit and Coffee Talk. Spirit and Coffee One is Instagram. And we can talk about what it might look like to maybe co-create something, or to connect, or to engage, or whatever it is. But I'm super excited. The expansion, I think, is going to be good for people who are in relationships, and what that means to them, and how they can join together in a vision, okay? Which I think is important, because that's what I'm starting to understand and learn. And I believe that it's beautiful to be able to understand how to do that. I've been a solo game for a very long time, but now there's some interesting dynamics that have shifted, and it's beautiful. It's God in motion, which is love in motion, and the ability to support others who are in co-creation. So there you go. Awesome. So there you have it. I love you guys so much. Again, I bestow blessings upon you, for healing, for kindness, for love, for freedom and joy and happiness and everything else under the sun that's good and righteous. Okay. So I love you guys. Have a fantastical day, and I will be seeing you guys tomorrow. Bye.